Hello everyone, thank you for attending this presentation. The Berimbau musical bow is the signature instrument of Brazilian capoeira. Alone or in groups of three, Berimbaus lead capoeira's ensemble, control the flow, and serve as a vehicle of knowledge transmission for practitioners. Each berimbau can produce two pitches typically separated by an interval between a minor second and a major second. In the Capoeira Angola style, practitioners tune each of the three berimbaus of the ensemble in three pitch levels: low, middle, and high. However, the interval between those levels vary depending on individual, group, and context. Bow tuning is further complicated when combined with song. At one side of the spectrum, singers may tonicize one or various berimbau pitches. At the other, practitioners may sing in any tonality disregarding precise bow tuning. This paper explores the largely unstudied relationship between berimbau tuning and song in early audio recordings of capoeira music in the 1940s and 50s, when capoeira was codified. I will contextualize this with analysis of the first three commercial capoeira albums in the 1960s and with two contemporary mestres from Bahia, Brazil. I argue that there are threads connecting contemporary practices of berimbau tuning and capoeira singing with those found in recordings throughout the 20th century. Through transcription and analysis of selected pieces and excerpts, I propose a taxonomy of relationships between bow and song that may correspond to unspoken ideal musical aesthetics that practitioners have cultivated for nearly a century in Bahia. The berimbau consists of a wooden staff braced and bent into a bow shape by a steel wire with a gourd resonator fastened near one of the ends. Players hit the string with a wooden stick, producing a bass pitch. The hand holding the bow also holds a flat stone or a coin called dobrão that presses the string at different positions, raising the pitch in relation to the open note. Despite this possibility to produce two pitches, discourse on precise tuning in capoeira is largely implicit. One famous master from Bahia called Poloca, for instance, told me that, quote, "I know how to tune the berimbaus for capoeira performance, but I do not know how to find the exact notes for a studio session where they may be combined with other pitched instruments," end quote. The master implies that what matters in capoeira is maintaining a difference between low, medium, and high pitches, which is the discourse of most masters I have met. However, recently, some capoeiristas have become interested in discussing berimbau tuning. This is partly a result of studying old capoeira recordings and a desire to establish links with old capoeira practices. In a recent book called Capoeira Afinada, two practitioners from Bahia argue that many contemporary masters such as Cabello and Accordeon have a specific rhetoric and practices on how to tune the berimbau. As I do in this paper, they argue that mastresses' tuning practices are rooted or inspired in older practices. I will briefly introduce the discourse in berimbau tuning by two contemporary capoeira Angola mestres based in Bahia, Mestre Moraes and Mestre Cabello. In his study of Moraes' musical approach, Chilean capoeirista and scholar Nicolas Larraín wrote that for the mestre song intonation is, quote, highly dependent on berimbau tuning, end quote. Larraín asserts that mestres and practitioners do not talk about precise objective tuning relationships between the different berimbaus. This is because their experience allows them to tune berimbaus mechanically, without naming those relationships as Western trained musicians do. He goes on to explain that Moraes tunes the berimbaus following this order. Gonga is the lowest, viola is the medium pitched, and medio is the highest pitched. This, he tells us, contradicts the group's own rhetoric that viola is higher than medio, which is widely shared among capoeira groups. In the shown table, he explains Moraes' approach to berimbau tuning. Larraín transcribed some 30 capoeira songs, but unfortunately does not provide berimbau tunings. He transcribes the ladainha Zumbi Rei dos Palmares from the album Capoeira Angola from Salvador, Brazil, 1996, in C major. From the recording, we can hear that the fundamental of the song is actually C plus 80 cents, that is closer to D flat than to C. The actual tuning of the berimbaus is shown in the slide. As we can see, the relative tuning of the berimbaus heard in the recording that is Mediu, Gunga, and Viola in that order, does not match that reported by Larraín, which is Gunga, Viola, and Mediu, or even what most mestres claim, which is Gunga, Mediu, and Viola. These are our first two lessons about relative tuning. First, discourse and practice do not always align. And second, there is a great variety of relative tuning of the three berimbaus in Capoeira and Gola ensembles. What is remarkable is that the singer chose the open note of viola as central pitch for the song. It is unclear why Moraes did not use one of Gunga's notes for this purpose, which is the bow that he played in this recording and therefore the one he could hear more clearly. Contrast this with Mestre Cabello, who has developed a tuning method to accompany songs based on early capoeira recordings by Cabecinha and Traíra, two old mestres. He tunes the three berimbaus adjacently and uses the raised note of gunga as the fundamental of song. So adjacent means that the lowest, let me explain that again. As shown, Cabello tunes gunga in F, G, Mediu in G, A, and viola in A and B. That means that the higher note of gunga matches the lower note of Mediu, and the higher note of Mediu matches the lowest note of gunga. The long syncopated note in 2 and forms the major triad GB, which Cabello uses to sing in G major. In this example, berimbau tuning is related to song in two manners. One berimbau pitch functions as fundamental for song, and the berimbaus form the tonic chord for melody. In the first three commercial capoeira recordings from the 1960s made by Mestre Bimba, Traíra, and Paraná, the mestres also demonstrated concern for relationship between berimbau tuning and song tonality. Mestre Bimba, for example, tuned his berimbau in G flat and A flat and sang in A flat major. Paraná tuned the three berimbaus in unison in A flat and B flat for the album's only sung track. He sang in A flat, tonicizing the open berimbau note. Finally, in Traíra tuned the three berimbaus as follows: the lowest in F, G, the medium in G, A flat, and the highest in B flat and C. With this tuning, he sang the Ladinha in F minor. Notice that the F minor chord is formed with pitches from each berimbau. This is precisely the approach that inspired Mestre Cabello. Now I will focus on two sets of recordings from 1940 and 1951 in Bahia. For the precise measurement of berimbau and song pitch, I used the app Sing Scope. I looped in the individual pitches or melodic fragments from recordings and sang them back to Song Scope, which in turn produced melograms with a discrete grid, within a discrete grid as shown in the slide. Let's start with Turner. The first is by US-American linguist Lorenzo Dow Turner, who visited Bahia in 1940. He recorded 18 hours of songs from Afro-Brazilian traditions for his study of African linguistic traces in the Americas. This included 1 hour worth of recordings with three capoeira mestres from Bahia, Bimba, Cabecinha, and Juvenal. The results of this paper are based on 4 of these recordings, but I will only demonstrate my analysis of 2 of them. Let's start with Juvenal. One of the 10 tracks that Juvenal played, I focused on track 2, which is a song called Sim Sim Sim, and track 9 with a sequence of songs. All songs were accompanied by one berimbau, one pandeiro, that is a tambourine, and featured a small male choir that responded to Juvenal, the solo singer. In the track Sim Sim Sim, the berimbau's open note was E flat plus 30 cents, and the raised note was approximately F. Juvenal sings using pitches of a diatonic scale with F as the fundamental pitch, that is tonicizing the berimbau's raised note. Let's listen to this example.
Sim, 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 oh não, não, não. Sim, 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 oh não, não, não. Sou caboclo, não engano. Sim, sim, sim.
Now let's listen to the berimbau pitches. So here I isolated the pitches so we can listen to them. So these are the results from song scope. Let's listen to those berimbau pitches. Now let's listen to the song's main melody. Notice again how Juvenal tonicizes F, which is the berimbau's raised note.
Sim, 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 oh não, não, não. Sou caboclo, não engano. Sim, 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 oh não, não, não.
In track number 9, featuring a solo and a responsorial song, Juvenal's approach is more complicated. Let's start with berimbau tuning. As shown in the slide, berimbau tuning is approximately E plus 10 cents, the lower note, and the higher note is F plus 40 cents. Now, the first song in this track is the quadra No Tempo Que Eu Tinha Dinheiro. It utilizes pitches of a minor pentatonic scale with its fundamental approximately in D flat plus 30 cents. That is, none of the bow pitches matches the fundamental. Because the open note is E plus 10 cents, it's approximately a minor third above the song's fundamental, that is almost 300 cents, it's actually 280 cents above. We could speculate that the singer used the relative major pitch as reference. Let's listen to the song in relation to the bow.
No tempo que eu tinha meu dinheiro, camarada me chamava de parente. Hoje meu dinheiro acabou, meu camarada me chama de valente.
Camarada, that's the fundamental right there. That's D flat plus 30. So again, none of the bow pitches is the fundamental, but I'm speculating that it's possible that he used the open note, that is E plus 10 cents, as reference. Finally, when Juvenal moves on to the responsorial song Ay 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 Ay, he sings in a major pentatonic scale with B flat as its fundamental, which is unrelated to both berimbau pitches. So let's listen to this song.
Lele, ay, 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 ay. Lele, la, 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 la. Lele, ay, 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 ay. Lele, la, 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 la.
So here again, the song mode disregards berimbau pitches. Now moving on to the second mestre that Turner recorded, Mestre Cabecinha. Of my analysis of the recordings Turner did with Mestre Cabecinha, I will only share how the mestre gradually rises the song mode in one of the songs of the first track. In the corrido Era Besouro, Cabecinha sings in the same minor pentatonic mode that he used for the first 2 minutes of this track, but gradually raises the fundamental from approximately A plus 40 cents to approximately B flat, as shown in the melograms that we will see in the next slide. So first, let's listen to this song with this transcription in staff notation. So again, the tonic is not exactly A, but it's slightly above A.
Era besouro, ali quincadão de ouro. Era besouro, ali quincadão de ouro. Era besouro.
Okay. So again, the tonic here is close to the raised berimbau pitch. Now here we have the waves of the two versions of the same melody sung at the beginning of the moment when the song started to be sung by Mestre Cabecinha and towards the end, which is some 3 minutes later. So gradually he raises the fundamental, the mode, and but the berimbau pitch remains the same. So let's listen to the first to this first. The difference is very subtle. I was only able to perceive it when I sang it back to this and saw the the melogram.
Era besouro, ali crincadão de ouro. Era besouro, ali crincadão de ouro. Era besouro.
So here notice the fundamental is almost A, it's like A plus 40, A plus 50 cents. And here is more clearly the fundamental position in B flat. So let's listen to the second version.
Era besourinho de Santa Mãe. Saudade repete aí.
The Berimbau's raised note, A plus 20 cents, thus supports a range of fundamental pitches in the song, sometimes as low as A and others as high as B flat. There is a clear relationship between bow and pitch, and between bow tonality and pitch, but one that is flexible. The last capoeira Mestre Turner recorded was the famous founder of the capoeira regional style, Mestre Bimba. Of this recording, there are two relevant aspects to report. First, that Bimba used a bateria of 2 berimbaus and 1 pandeiro, a rare precedent of the signature bateria or ensemble of 1 berimbau and 2 pandeiros that Bimba later standardized for the capoeira regional style. And second, in all the 5 songs of track number 4, Bimba sang in a mode completely divorced from the 4 berimbau pitches. Now, this is the second set of recordings made in 1951 by Anthony Leeds. The second recording was made by US-American anthropologist Anthony Leeds, who visited Bahia in 1951 to conduct fieldwork for his doctoral research. He recorded the well-known Mestre Valdemar de Paixão. In the 3 tracks, we hear 3 berimbaus playing polyphonically accompanied by 1 or 2 pandeiros. I focused on the first and longest track called O Valente Vilela, which features an instrumental opening and an extended ladainha, then responsorial chulas, and 3 plain songs called corridos. The 3 berimbaus are tuned as follows. So here you can see the adjacent tuning where the higher note of gunga matches the lower note of medio, and the higher note of medio matches the lower note of viola. Let's listen to this texture. So this is the first documented example of a capoeira bateria with 3 berimbaus and of adjacent tuning. Now, Waldemar sings the ladainha, which is the introductory solo song, in minor pentatonic mode, tonicizing gunga's raised pitch. By the end of the ladainha, Waldemar has raised the tonality to close to G minor pentatonic, demonstrating the kind of flexibility we heard in Turner's recordings of Cabecinha. Now move to my final discussion. Through an analysis of capoeira recordings from different periods, we have learned how capoeira mestres from Bahia tuned their berimbaus and how they sang in relation to those tunings. We studied ensembles comprising 1, 2, or 3 berimbaus. Bimba was the only one using 2 berimbaus, tuning them in non-adjacent manner. Of those who used 3, some tuned them adjacently, others partly adjacently, and 1 in unison. Although varied, their approaches to singing in relation to berimbau tuning can be grouped in 4 categories. First, singers may use pitch simultaneities to form a tonic chord for song. This approach is first observed in Traíra's 1963 recording and is currently reproduced by Mestre Cabello. Second, singers may use one of the bow pitches as fundamental for singing. Most mestres do this, some tonicizing the open note and others the raised note. Third, singers may indirectly relate their tonality to bow pitches. Juvenal, for instance, sings in a minor pentatonic mode while the berimbau's open note plays the relative major pitch. And fourth, singers may sing in any tonality without any obvious relationship to berimbau pitches. This last chart crosses the information between the 2 previous slides, showing what kind of singing approach is used in relation to number of berimbaus in tuning style. Notice that in all instances, when a relationship between song tonality and bow pitch could be verified, there is flexibility and tolerance. When singers tonicize a bow pitch, they oscillate around that pitch, sometimes below and most times above it. The exact gap is not fully clear, but never exceeds a semitone. Is this a melodic equivalent of the concept of microtiming in groove-based musics? Can Charles Kyle's concept of participatory discrepancies or Ann Danielson's beat beam or Chris Stover's beat span be useful analogies to think about this subtle tuning tolerance in berimbau? Does a berimbau pitch support a range of tonalities for singers rather than a single one? If so, what is the size of that span? In this presentation, I have shown that many capoeira singers from now and before understand the relationship between berimbau tuning and song tonality in different ways. I have still no evidence to establish whether this understanding is conscious or intuitive. On the one hand, the consistency found since the 1940s until now suggests that it may be deliberate, but the almost absolute lack of discourse about it suggests that it may be implied, unspoken, and unconscious. I plan to continue studying these relationships, exploring recordings, documentaries, and programs from the 1950s and 1960s. The recent interest of some capoeiristas to discuss precise berimbau tuning in relation to song tonality opens the possibility to add an ethnographic component to the analytical study of an aesthetic that has been hidden and implicit for at least 8 decades. Thank you very much.